Are you thinking about a career in construction? In this episode, hear from Joshua Gamble, Director of Adaptis Project Developments, on his journey into industry, the risks he manages behind the scenes for clients, and how AI is modernising project delivery.
Hey, g'day Josh. Thanks for joining. How are you?
Yeah, good, Tom. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Mate, great to have you on, and it's been great to work with you over the last couple of months to get Adaptis onto Mastt and kind of using the platform as well as possible. So I guess very keen to kind of get you some exposure, share a bit about Adaptis and really understand your process. You've got an interesting background and you're running a very successful PM consultant business, and I think industry is going to love to hear some of your insights and I guess some of the process behind it. So I think as a starting point, walk me through some of your background and kind of what led you to Adaptis.
Yeah, sure. So I originally started my career not looking at construction. I studied extractive metallurgy at uni, but I did realise through uni that I did want to eventually get into, well, it was project management, developments or new builds of processing plants, just around sort of creating something new is what I was interested in. I was working on mines a couple of years, and mine site I was on shut down. I was made redundant, went to Canada for a couple of years, met my now wife who came back to Perth with me, and decided that fly in, fly out wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be home with her more. Looked at changing careers, tried a couple of things, and then my family runs a shop fitting company here in Perth, and then they said, why don't you come over and give this a crack? Jumped in there, and turns out I actually loved it, even though I was trying to avoid it. They gave me the opportunity to be on site a little bit, understand the process, make sure that I was happy to continue on, and eventually jumped up to being project manager, running some fit outs. Was there for about 5 years or so. And then I decided to move on and look at some larger things. At that time, I was picked up by a shopping centre working on their very large redevelopment, helping out with tenancy delivery, which was a fantastic opportunity, which really broadened my horizons about what was out there. From that, I was always talking with the project managers that were on that job, got along with them pretty well, and decided that that's what I wanted to do. At the end of that, got a few names, cold called my now business partner, Tony, and joined ARIA Projects. Started working on some projects through there, and then he gave me the opportunity to come in as an owner. At that time, I was talking to my other business partner, Ollie, about his business, which was doing the same thing, Tensis Consulting, and we decided that a merger was the right thing to do for the companies, and that's where we created Adaptis.
Mate, fantastic. What a background. And I guess having those different experiences at different places, how has that kind of, I guess, shifted the types of projects that Adaptis is looking to do? And I guess, where are you guys finding success in this space?
Well, given my background was shop fitting, then retail, and sort of moved through there, and at a point I was starting to do the works for the shopping centre owners as well. Started doing quite a bit of that. I definitely lean towards retail. I really love it. It's definitely my bag. So retail developments, new builds, redevelopments. I love the live environments. It's just another challenge, which really keeps things exciting. The greenfields are a great opportunity as well to create something new from scratch without too many limitations. There's always something. And then, yeah, with Tony's background, he's been running ARIA for close to 20 odd years, or has been, and had previous experience for that. He's heavy in the residential side. Ollie has experience in a bit of everything. So he does quite a bit of commercial, industrial developments, and yeah, picks up a bit of everything. So we're pretty wide ranging. We each have our specialties, but we can also adapt to each, and as we go around, we just like trying something new, working with clients and getting a great outcome from everybody.
Yeah, perfect. Mate, proof is in the pudding. I guess if your name's called Adaptis, it's good to be adaptable. So, mate, I can vouch for that from the experience I've seen from you. But I guess just to pick two, if we're going to go like, let's say retail and multi-resi, the process behind it, I imagine, has a few differences and a few, I guess, things that you have to get right for that project to go as well as you can. So I guess what is the key difference in like the operational side going from like a multi-resi to a retail job?
So multi-resi, you're often looking at what is it going to be the final product? Is it going to be sellable? Is it going to present well to market? is the developer going to get their return of investment at the end of it? Those projects, yeah, you really are catering for those buyers, and you're picking a certain demographic usually that the market is suitable for in that area. And those builds, whether they be townhouses, apartments, they'll be somewhat rigid, although maybe some soft finishes can change. Occasionally a bigger change when a larger buyer comes in, but they are pretty, yeah, they're rigid. You have your groundwork, you have your design, and then you're going up and you're building it to that up until the purchasers come in and maybe they want to make some changes. So it's pretty heavy on changes on the back end, just in the soft finishes, and you have to jump to make those changes. There's quite a few stakeholders to manage at the tail end of that. Retail, quite often when you're starting the project, you don't have leases in place, or you might have preferred, whether they be food operators, specialties, medical, what have you. You need to be somewhat flexible because the market is going to determine who goes in each of those tenancies, and you need to be able to move things around to suit each of these tenants and work with what's going to work best for their store. You might have tenants that come in that want to change services drastically, and you need to be able to have that flexibility. And then you need to be able to, you might have to move some intertenancy walls, create a bigger space, create a smaller space, split things up. You're making a framework for your ideal situation at the very start, knowing that it will likely change, and you need to be able to make sure that that's going to change. You're also focusing very heavily on customer experience, because if you don't have customers coming into the centre, sales aren't there, and therefore your leasing rates are lower. So you need to be catering for everybody, every single person that could possibly come in this place, rather than sitting it to a certain type of person, which is typically in the residential side.
Yeah, interesting. How ad hoc are those changes? Like, are you getting the briefing in the morning and you need an outcome by the afternoon, or do you have a few days of runway to try and put something together? What do you usually say?
Depends on how late in the project it is, and depends in if leases have happened early. If they happen early, you've got quite a bit of time to do it, and you might be able to get it without doing any retrospective works, which is always the goal. But leasing, again, it's a sales process, so you may have tenants that come in right at the very end and they need something, and you've got a week to actually get it done, and you hope that there's a capacity there, given that, yeah, as a shop fitter, Ollie and I both worked in intensive delivery before. We understand what needs to be done. We typically can see it as soon as they sign the lease and whatever's there, and go, okay, this is what needs to be done. Can we make it work? And we'll be talking with the leasing agent as well, hopefully before the lease is signed, saying that this can happen, this can't, this will come in at roughly this cost, and that guides how they're going to go through that leasing process as well. With the residential, soft changes could happen at any time. They may want the builder to do it. They may want to do it afterwards. Hopefully the finishes aren't already down, because then it gets quite costly, and it depends on the sale and what that contract is, whether the developer is paying for that or whether the new owner is going to be paying for that. It changes depending on it. Hopefully you get more time than you need, but I'd say it's rarely the case.
Yeah, and I guess that's why they've engaged you, having that consultant to work alongside of them and take some of that burden off their shoulders. So I guess if you're doing that well, you're doing your job. So good to hear. And I guess in terms of new builds versus redevelopments, where does Adaptis kind of sit in that sphere? Is there a priority towards one? Is there a preference? And I guess off the back of that question as well, is there much difference in process when you're doing, I guess, picking either?
We like both. Your new builds it gives you, I guess, an easier start from the design side, that you don't have to work with it, whatever's around you. It gives you a bit more flexibility as to what you can and can't do. You're bringing in new services. You don't have to work with what's already there. The redevelopments I really enjoy, because it really gets you thinking about what impacts are going to be there. What are our bottlenecks? How is the construction sequencing going to work? How are we going to minimize the impact on the trading centre? Because the trading, but anything that's already operational needs to continually be operational, whether that's going to come in for night works for some things, noisy works, depends on what's around them. Yeah, there's a lot of things in play with the redevelopment, and yeah, makes them exciting.
I guess if you had to pick the biggest challenge of a live environment, redevelopment or development, or something you've had to overcome so many times, but it's so consistent and such a big challenge, could you point like one or two out, or is that too acute of a question?
There's always something on each of them. I'd say with redevelopments, connecting in for power, if you're not bringing new power into the site, is always a challenge. Working with the authorities, they might be a lot slower than what we work on in the private sector if you can upgrade it. Otherwise, you may have some bottlenecks and you've got to work where, your power is best situated. You got food operators that might need 100 amp 3-phase, and that's pretty typical throughout. Can we squeeze something down? Can we limit the way that they're going to be operating? Will that have an impact on who the final tenant's going to be? Then connecting into those existing systems, and then you have to shut down the whole centre. Hopefully not. Hopefully there's multiple boards there and you can piggyback off of one and get that power through. It's not always the case, but there's always going to be an impact, and making sure that you're only going to be doing them at night. You just put everything in place to make sure that power is on straight away first thing in the morning because they want to turn the lights on. They want to get customers in the door.
Well, it's got to keep ticking over. Completely understandable. But
That's it.
I guess taking it back to a new build scope, I'm interested to know this new build side. When it comes to design intent versus what's actually buildable, is there much, I guess, client expectation you have to manage there, or is it a relatively smooth process to actually get that on site, or what's the process there?
There's always trying to squeeze the most out of the land that you've got, the budget that you've got. And we could come in at a master planning point where we can say, we've got to consider this. Do we want to spend money here or move things around? Or we could be coming after that master plan and we'll say, well, has anybody considered anything that's going on here? Clients that may not understand what, again, with power right now in WA, power is just very hard to get along. It takes a long time to get, and it's expensive. And clients might not understand the difference between getting, say, 2,000 kVA or 2 MVA to a site and getting up to 4. They may want 4,000 kVA, but that's going to add another 18 months to the process. That's already going to be a couple of years to get that. So it's trying to give them the outcome they want and the time frame they want to the budget that they want. It's always a balancing act, and whether they've considered it or not, it just depends if they've had that experience. Whereas we've dealt with the problems at the back end or the front end or every other end. Yeah, so we come with that expertise.
From your experience, you just mentioned cost, risk, time, and being an Australian business but selling globally, we see each region has a very unique, approach to prioritizing that triangle. Like, I guess in Australia and at Mastt personally, we see cost is a big, driver behind how the project moves forward. But if you start looking at Middle East, it's more time-based. Can you speak on that? What's your experience with a client or the developer wanting one of those 3 items ticked off as the priority? What would you say that is?
I'd say the priority is typically cost. I'd say that'd be in 95% of cases. In the end, we've got a limited market, especially in Perth. There's only so much that you can get back out of it. So you need to make sure that your return on investment is going to work out. If it's not feasible, developer's not going to do it unless there's some other motivation behind that, which is generally few and far between. Even in those cases, still got to stack up. If you're not going to get that return, then why spend the money? Why don't you move on to something else?
Yeah, 100%. I think we've seen you and your business, you are able to balance those 3. And it's, it's a challenge that all PM consultants are facing. But I think from the team internally, we've noticed you guys have been able to do that really well. So, props to the business. But something you mentioned before with the master plan and being brought in early on a project, being brought in later when some things are already kind of flowing within the job. Do developers typically miss things before they engage you? Like things that they've overlooked? And I'm looking more for trends than kind of one-offs, things that you notice among a bunch of clients, things that if they engaged you straight away, you'd be able to move past that immediately. Anything you've noticed?
Yeah, definitely on the retail side, we can say if you're aiming for this type of tenant, they're going to want this type of space. But have you considered that, say, an Audi, they're always looking for 10 kVA on their floor. So you need to bump that up. Have you considered the additional structural requirements of this? You may not have their specs here, but we've dealt with them before. We know how rich they are with their requirements. Have you considered that a Woolworths requires their own power? Have you got within your budget to supply them their own power, their own boards? This comes at a significant cost. You've got additional cables that come in. And yeah, it's definitely around moving the spaces around for those smaller tenants in there. You can see quite quickly what will and won't work. our experience. I guess it's sort of broad, but it's hard to pinpoint exactly something that comes through in every single one. But those are the typical things that we say.
Yeah, interesting. Now, I guess while we're talking about the kind of cost being prioritized in the Australian market and like the feasibility being so important, when it comes to variations, what is there a specific variation that has the biggest impact on a project? Like, is it weather? Is it anything kind of specific or?
Yeah, authority delays. You might not, again with power, you might not get power, you might not get water to your site for 3, 6, 12 plus months.
Wow.
And that's going to have a big impact on what the builder has to allow for. So if they're going to have to allow for generators, that's coming at a significant cost compared to actually getting something from the authority mains. That's, big impact. And it's very hard to pinpoint when you're actually going to get that. You can ask all the questions in the world, but a lot of authorities will work at their own pace and they're not necessarily going to jump when you desperately need it. They've got a lot of work to do and we're one of the pile.
Yeah, definitely. Now, if the project does go sideways, what are the expectations from the client where you have to kind of jump in and solve items? What is it like a checklist you're going through of things that they've issued to you that are problems? Is it you finding these problems and taking them to the client? I guess, what do they expect you that's not written in the contract that's the reason that they're engaging you and getting this repeat work from these clients?
We're often engaged to be their eyes and ears, keeping it on the day-to-day, making sure that we're on top of everything that's going on so that they don't have to do that. They can work on their next project. We will raise those, I guess, the larger issues that may have an impact and just give them a heads up. So forewarning, I think clients do appreciate rather than just keeping everything away from them. But we are here to manage those problems as well. So if we can fix a problem before it goes to the client, all the better. That's exactly what we're here for, so that they don't have to do that work. And we use our expertise. Yeah, we'll jump in. I may jump in more than what I should, but I've worked builder side, landlord side, consultant side, tenant side, done them all now. So I know those problems that come up, and I'd say a lot of the time I know a way to fix them, whether that's an impact of the project or we can get it past. Personnel issues as well. There could be something happening on site that could be affecting momentum, could be affecting costs, could be affecting anything there. That's something that we will try and manage, but we'll make the client aware of, just so that we're onto it. We've advised the right people going above those personnel or anything like that. Again, if a contractor happens to go under, which happens from time to time, unfortunately, then suddenly the main contractor doesn't have that subby. And that can have a massive impact to the project. We've had it with an apartment building, a glazier went under when they hadn't sealed up the building. The builder was very good in managing that. They really were. But keeping them aware that it could very well have a time impact, and then depending on the contract that's been signed, then it could have cost impact as well.
Cool. Now, what I've kind of taken from that and what you've mentioned is trust is just a really important piece of that relationship between a project manager and that either client or developer or whoever you're engaging. Now, to have those tough conversations with a client, you have to have built that trust. Now, I guess we'll take a step back from Adaptis and have a look at industry. And I guess with the way that industry's been the last few years, I guess some investor uncertainty around builds. You mentioned it before, contractors, and I guess some instability in terms of their position. What's your kind of view on the client's development pipelines that you're working with? Is there, I guess, challenges getting the projects moving forward at the moment? Is the industry kind of hitting that wave where we were kind of pre-COVID? What's your thoughts on industry right now?
Rising with the increase in fuel prices, and then that has a knock-on effect with plastics and materials and rates for travel deliveries. That does have a big impact. Over the last few years, a lot of projects have sort of been balancing on a knife edge, whether they're feasible or not. Rents aren't going up. Sale prices have been, but then after budget, then they may slow down. We'll see how that goes. Actually, new builds, you'll see. So I do see potential for things to slow down just when developers are wondering whether they're going to get their return. Now, I do think that already people have learnt from COVID that the rise in costs through there, it doesn't go down. So if you want to get in there, get in now, because today's the best price that you're going to get. So if it's going to be a long-term asset and it's going to return it's going to continue returning that investment over a long time, and you might be able to spread that investment over that time and get that return eventually. So they are looking at different ways to get that return, but yeah, as to how that goes, we'll see very soon. We still do have developments that are going ahead though, so there's motivated developers out there.
Yeah, definitely. How does, I guess, with this uncertainty in the market, and you mentioned today is the best price, and I guess getting in and doing it is the best way to do it. How does Adaptis approach this work with clients? Is it, I guess, building the trust and giving them certainty that today is the best time to do it? Or is it just, I guess, using what they've got and building a bit of a business case for it to build it? I guess, how's your approach to dealing with this with clients with the current sphere of market?
So we'll remind them of the trends of the market, that it goes up, it doesn't typically go down, whether they are seeing stagnant rates in terms of their sales figures or leasing figures as well. We'll say, yep, that's the return you're going to get. Is there somewhere else that we can look at some value engineering to make sure that this does stack up? We know that this is going to go up in price. We expect this is going to go up in price. We could look at locking in the contractor earlier in terms of a D&C arrangement or lump sum D&C, or whether the client would prefer to take more of a risk-based approach and say go cost plus, or rely on the consultants and their design team to make sure that everything's documented in those cases. I personally am leaning more towards getting contractors involved earlier, locking that price in. There will always be some clarifications around, but you negotiate that as part of the contract process and the agreement process. If you get a builder in early as well, you're going to rely on their expertise to make sure you get the best outcome. These guys are boots on the ground. They see it every day. They've dealt with every problem, and they've probably dealt with more problems than what we all have in that sphere. They know how to make things work. They see the trends quicker than what we do, and developers do. They're a great asset. Good main contractors, working with them, because in the end, if the development doesn't go ahead, they don't have any work either. So they're very motivated to assist and make sure this project does stack up.
Would you say that the contractors are almost the wind under the sail, and they're the ones like keeping that job pushing forward, and you're kind of managing the expectation of the client and making sure everything on the corporate side's working well? Or is that a poor read of how it currently is?
Again, depends on the contractor. The contractors are motivated through whether there's liquidated damages in the project, but that's a stick that you definitely don't want to go down that track if you can avoid it. But the quicker that they get that job done, the quicker they get out of there, and then their premiums aren't ticking over. So they are motivated to get the job done. Most often they're very motivated just to give a good outcome. They all want to see a project completed. They want to see a happy client in the end of the day, whether that's for a repeat business or just saying, we built that. Everybody's got their motivations, and yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say there's anyone that's negative out there. We will be pushing things along for the client's requirements, tenant requirements, sales requirements, authority requirements, whatever that may be. And we are monitoring things along and seeing, well, can we work with the builder to do something out of sequence to make sure that this milestone is hit, if it's lagging behind or if something comes up. We are managing client stakeholders, making sure that not too many changes are being thrown in it unless they're absolutely necessary, and that's protecting time, budget, the project in total. Yeah, we're in there pushing it along with them, but the contractor is the one that gets the job done. So
Now,
we're having a good relationship with them.
I'm interested, and again, this will be quite subjective and I think different in terms of project locations or who you're engaging, and quite a few items here that you could discuss. But for a very junior PM that's just come into the industry, trying to manage a contractor that's been around for 20, 30, 40 years, comparing that to yourself with a background, with a title as a director of the business and owner, do you find that there's a difference with how the contractors will relate to the project manager if they're junior compared to yourself? Or do they really have their own initiatives and it's really just getting that project manager on board, or vice versa, to get the project moving ahead?
There's definitely a difference, and I'd expect the same. Somebody's coming in junior, then they don't have that experience. They might be saying something that may not necessarily be the best outcome or the best way to do things, might be going about things differently. For a junior PM, the best thing is to get in, learn from people that are on the ground. They've got a wealth of experience, and majority are more than happy to share that with you. That's definitely the way that I learned. I remember my first fit out, I went down to site and just talked with the gyp rocker, the person who was installing. I said, "What are you doing here? How are you doing it?" So I understood how it went together next time. Same building shop fronts, and every project, there's something there that I may not have a lot of experience with, but I'll be talking with the trades and I'll be talking with the contractor and just saying, being open and honest and saying, this is something that I haven't seen built, or this is being done differently than what I've seen before. Why are you doing this? What's the reasons? And yeah, it's something that you can bring on for future. But if I say something, they will typically respond back or listen to that a bit more. But again, if a junior comes in, they build that relationship, they're going to listen a lot more as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I guess with AI and the whole world changing and this whole scope towards automation, process and whatnot, I feel like we've all kind of gone back to that junior state when it comes to AI. Everyone's kind of learning it, putting it together, testing things out, trying to integrate different AIs together. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on kind of AI and how you're leveraging it and your experience, because I know from our conversations that you have had a really good play at it, and I'd almost call you one of the senior people within industry in that space. I know it's a stretch, but it's from my conversations personally. Now, yeah, tell me about your experience with it. Where's it working really well for you, and where's it, I guess, falling short to your expectations, but you see that roadmap of where it's going to go?
So I started dabbling in it just for, rather than Google and put it into search engines of AI, and then I would be checking against the information that I know that I've seen happen and from experience. So I'm always testing it as I go on items that I already know the answer, because yeah, I think it's very hard to trust something new there. We're bringing it in for, and Mastt has got it in it as well, your contract admin, and now drag and drop PDF files in there, auto populates. It's a huge time saver. It really is. I have it scrolling through documents to find specific items, which again might take me half an hour to find it, and it could take 5 minutes. Anything to get efficiency is really, really good. We've linked some AI platforms to our project files, specific ones that we're okay working. I'm currently working with 3 different AI platforms and still working through which one to use for which task. But I'll make a determination on a contract clause, variation, whatever, and then I'll throw it into AI and see what it comes up with. And it's giving it the right information. It's very, very powerful. We are looking at bringing more in as well, so that we're not bogged down with the contract admin spreadsheets and the lot, so we can be out there and making decisions with the contractor, with the client, and adding more value rather than purely recording numbers. And it's much more enjoyable to be out there doing those things and doing the spreadsheets as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, for a junior that's just joined, downloaded Claude, punched in a few details, what do you think would be the biggest risk for like a client-side PM in that space that's just generated it? Would it be incorrect data? Would it be, I guess, not being able to have that experience behind it to understand where those answers are being directed? Just from your experience, what do you think the biggest risk is?
Yeah, I definitely think if you're just blindly trusting it, then that could really lead you down the wrong path. Along with if a junior came in with a lack of experience and they're going straight into AI and they don't get the boots on the ground learning from everything that's going on, they're not going to be able to work out if something is wrong. They're not going to learn. They're just going to blindly trust it. And then the industry may as well turn into AI for all of that, which I don't think is the right call. It is wrong from time to time. It definitely is. So having the experience to check it so I sort of treat AI as a junior. They've gone out, they've got that information, they've put it in one space, and then they've made a determination of it. I'll be looking at that information, and given that I know a lot of the projects like the back of my hand, I'll say, you haven't picked up this, you haven't picked up this, you haven't referred to this document, which is a key part. I was doing that just last night with something. Using AI, we won't get a depth of experience in the industry, which I see as a big risk. And then you're blindly trusting it could cause some big issues, whether that's on the contractor side or client side. Yeah, you need to understand your role before you use it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that not having the human reviews portion of it is just it's a scary place because there's a lot of blind trust. And I think something you've touched on today that I guess we hadn't considered too much was having that experience behind it and the cross-reference with a human. Like, it's just one of those things that's so important. And I think, yeah, it's great that Adaptis is all over that, because I think it's going to have massive benefits for the client, which leads to my next question. Well, I know it's going to benefit Adaptis. We know it benefits, I guess, people around Adaptis. So in terms of your clients, they're like, AI is going to benefit the business internally. It's going to save you guys time at Adaptis. How do you feel that's going to translate to the client? Are they going to be seeing, I guess, cost savings because your overheads can be lower? How's it actually going to benefit the client themselves from you being an expert in AI?
Yeah, definitely cost savings for the client. The more efficiency we can get out of it, the less time that we're spending on projects, then yeah, the better off the client's going to be. We're not going to add additional hours to a project when we don't need to. And I don't think that many client-side PMs would be doing that, because otherwise you go out of business pretty quickly once people work that out. They're also going to get updates a lot quicker if that contract admin is being done, either if it's automated or if just the data entry is sped up, then that's just going to get to them much quicker. Rather than being a day, it could be an hour, if that's going to come down to it, and then it needs some eyes to check over it. The client will also get, and you're getting through Mastt, you've got live updates, so they can log in, see what's going on, and because we're able to update it quicker, they've got a dashboard right there, so they can see what's going on at any time, and that could be logged in by our direct report. Could be somebody that's higher up from them. If they need a bit of info, it's just going to be right there, and it's going to be updated instantly rather than it taking a week or however long.
Awesome. Now, as a final question, and it's really about wider industry and tech, because we know construction has been the slowest to digitize, and that's a trend over the last 10 to 15 years. There have been a few operational platforms that have really put a foot in the door and opened it up, and we've seen the effect of that with so many companies, and I guess head contractors specifically, now almost having to have that system in place. So tell me about the digital transformation from Adaptis, kind of as you started from that, I guess, early stage of software, whether it's Excel or quite basic systems, and how that conversion into masters and more holistic platforms. I guess, how's it been? Has there been challenges internally to actually get the adoption around it? And then I am, of course, interested to hear the maybe key benefit or two that you've had from Mastt, not using time. I don't want to hear time again, so I'll make it a bit challenging this last one.
Yeah. So we've it's probably been the last 12 months or so, we've gone through a bit of a digital transformation, linking different folders together so that they will talk to each other, and then bringing AI to make that happen. Dabbled in trying to make up a few apps here and there. Decided it was too hard, and then went to Mastt, which you guys did everything that I needed it to do. We were working a Microsoft Access database, which was very useful for us. It kept us out of spreadsheets, maybe more than what others are in them, which was great, but it was just slow, very heavy on data entry. Yeah, it's time for Mastt. But having everything at your fingertips, it's right there in front of you with Mastt. It's very easy to read, and it's got a lot of systems all in one, with your program, your dashboards, your templating, definitely your contract admin. That is by far the largest thing that we use for it. It's time. Mastt is low cost as well for the service that it gives. So there's a monetary benefit as well, which is great for us, because that does equal time. Time equals money. This is the way it's going to work.
It's the biggest compliment. To say we're saving you time and money, to me personally, in the way I interpret that, that's the best compliment you can have. So I'm quite happy you can't step over that, because that's really what we wanted to give industry. So very positive to hear.
It's a great platform, and I encourage other people that are completing roles similar to us to embrace it. The more of us that jump onto Mastt, the more it becomes how we operate. If we can get rid of the spreadsheets and get rid of repeating the same thing over and over and over, which costs us all time and money and enjoyment, then the better. Just jump in and embrace it.
Make it happen. From little things, big things grow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mate, thank you so much for jumping on. This has been awesome. And I think the viewers are going to love these responses. So really appreciate you sharing a bit about Adaptis, around your scope, your process, and then your thoughts on AI, because we know that you're prevalent in the industry, and we can't wait to see Adaptis keep taking over these projects.
Thank you. We should have more projects jumping into Mastt and we'll grow together.
Fantastic. Can't wait. Well, Josh, hope you have a great day, mate. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to know more about construction and get all the professional tips, tricks, and AI advice from real construction project managers, follow this channel for more insights.